Okay, so today I thought with the beginning of a new year, I may as well make my own chess variant, and it's something I've thought about for a while, but I've never formally explained it, and I don't have a way to really even demonstrate it because this game lets you kind of make your own custom variants and stuff, but I don't know if it'll let me do all the rule sets because some of them are pretty elaborate. But the point is, the concept behind it is think about like almost a pantheon of gods where you have eight lords, which are the core pieces, right? You'll still have the eight pawns as well. They work normally, except they promote obviously to any of the eight lords. And so each of the lords are going to be, this is at least the premise of it. You might debate it once you see the abilities that it's not perfectly equal, but they're meant to all be equal pieces to each other, right? So they all have one special ability. Think of it like whatever, the Greek gods or whatever. So one of them is the god of love and one of them is the god of something else. So they'll each have a power related to that. One special ability each. And so I'll lay out some of the possible ideas. Obviously, a lot of this you might see in other similar abilities and other variants, but this is meant to be like just a fixed set of them. Like Chess Evolved Online, I love. But the problem is it doesn't have a player base. Not that this would have a player base. It just doesn't even exist. But no, some of those abilities might be similar, but the problem with that is a lot of the pieces aren't equal, right? Some of them are way stronger than others and things like that. So some of the victory conditions could be win by either destroying all the lords of your opponent, right? Or it could be by promoting a ninth lord. So not saying a single promotion like, oh, if you promote at any point you just win, although that maybe could be just promote at all. You could promote to a super lord, and I don't know if I like that idea, but these two make more sense. The either destroy all of their lords and you still have one left at least, or you promote a ninth lord so you have all eight of them, or you have a total of 9 if you ever go over the original starting 8, right? All of those could be, but there is no checkmate condition because again they're all meant to be equal, right? There is no queen that's stronger than everybody else, things like that. So here are some of the abilities, right? So there could be the freezing time. This could be one that you have. So again, there's a lot of nuance. Doesn't mean that you freeze the entire board. It would be like this is similar to it's not quite how the spell chest works, but freeze one piece, cannot freeze the same piece 2 times in a row, can freeze a total of 3 times. Now their movement patterns will be a whole nother topic, but I'm mostly concerned about the abilities for right now, right? Like how exactly they move on top of, I don't know whether that should be equal or not too, but let's go through the abilities first. You freeze one piece, cannot freeze the same piece in a row, can freeze a total, or actually not even that, can freeze each piece a total of 3 times. So it would be that you can be constantly freezing every turn. And you might think, oh, that'd be overpowered because like with the queen, if you could freeze that, you could just guarantee that you're going to take it. But again, since there is no queen, right, that would be a relevant factor. There could also be one, this is something I didn't really think about, but there could just be like counter an ability. So one lord could just be there to counter one ability every single turn, every single time. So you'll always have one that you can negate. I don't know whether that would be really worth it or not, because if you complain like, oh, the freeze one is too overpowered, but then you can counter that. And the exception with this is the other freeze god can still use its ability even if frozen. So it's not that it would be immune to the freeze, it's just that it could also freeze while it's frozen. So I guess they could cancel each other out and keep freezing one another infinitely. Right, so that's one ability. Then there could be one that is a warp anywhere, which would be you could take your, this lord can warp itself anywhere on the board that isn't obviously occupied by another piece, which might seem overpowered, but it can't do it, cannot move or attack the same turn, of course. It'll just go there and leave itself potentially as a sitting duck. So that's a pretty basic ability. There could also be a mind control one. And again, each lord would only have one ability, obviously. Otherwise, that would be too much. Mind control would be kind of like you take over a piece but it would have to be like very close by instead of capturing. But again, the movement patterns would have to sort of complement this in a way that makes it fair. Otherwise, you can't just do that halfway across the board. So whatever the piece that has mind control would have to be like, it can't capture at all, or yeah, like that piece can't capture ever, and have to be within a very close range, right? I'd have to decide exactly what that's going to be. And then this is going to be impossible to actually translate, though, because again, I don't know if you're going to be able to incorporate some of these mechanics, but I don't know what other program. This is pretty good, Chesscraft, but some of this is going to be a little bit too specific. So now you would have one that could either... Oh, we lost our size here. We could have one that could either revive, heal, or shield something. Right. Now, revive might be a little busted, but... And even healing maybe doesn't make sense because these don't have health values. But one of those things that at least you can protect itself or any other lord or pawn even, I suppose. So it would just be that you can absorb one extra hit. So where it would have died, now it's immune to that hit, and then it'll die the next hit. And then that should also have the diminishing returns, basically. Can only use 3 times on each piece, cannot use 2 times on the same one in a row. That way you can't just like, oh, I'm just going to make this one piece invincible the whole game, right, where I just keep spamming it on there. So that would be important. And then ranged attack. I've always thought about this like with the bishop, like if the bishop was an archer, oh, it should have a range ability where it can just attack something on the other side of the board, but that would have to have its limit somehow. So this could be like, I'll make it a little different than that, where it attacks entire row, either like a file or row, damaging your own units as well. Now that might have its busted elements because you could just start the game and as soon as your first pawn is gone, you could just destroy whatever's on the other side. And whether that should affect itself or not is a question too. Damaging your own units as well. But again, that wouldn't be enough of a limit. There would have to be something more because... Okay, you attack the whole row, right? Let me try to set up just a basic board. This is actually very complicated to try to figure out. What if I just go back? Yeah, like let's just say we play and just... So like, let's say, okay, the king is the one that's doing this ranged attack. And it doesn't matter that it's a king because obviously... Oh, I didn't know this even has music. But no, the point is that, again, you would destroy everything in this row except for yourself. So that would be way too powerful because you're sacrificing one pawn, but you're destroying one of their lords. So I'm not exactly sure. That one might not entirely work because it seemed like a fair trade-off that, oh, you would destroy your own pieces, but not necessarily if it's going to be... It might say, like, limited to your territory. Limited to... your 4 squares, basically. So if they're on your territory, because yeah, that one seems way more busted. And then this could be similar to the revive or heal one, where it can like shield a hit for another lord. Like I absorb the hit, but that means that I'll also take it for them and be destroyed in the process. And then what else do we have? Just again, I didn't think these fully through, but the hardest part is balancing it because it's meant to be where every piece is equal. So it's almost like I wanted the movement pattern to be the same, but that might be unfair with some of these abilities. So sacrifice, or like you could do similar on the same note, sacrifice itself to or another piece to destroy a piece. So, for example, you know, the Lord could sacrifice a pawn, and in doing so, it would destroy one of their pawns or something along those lines. This one is kind of very good, where this doesn't seem too powerful. Take up a square, temporarily. So, like, you would choose a square. So for the next 3 turns, nobody can cross or occupy that square, including yourself, right? So that doesn't seem too busted, but it can be strategic. So as long as the square is empty, right, you could sort of box stuff in, and every turn you can do 1, and then it runs out in 3 turns. Immobile, but that would have to have the similar limitation, like cannot do the same square immediately. Or you could just you cannot do the same square twice, because otherwise, you know, since it lasts so long, that would be fair. You could also do one that moves another piece instead of itself, right, for its ability. And then, so you could effectively move the same piece twice, but you're sacrificing its own ability to move in the process. And then one that could actually like create pieces, like a necromancer type of thing, probably realistically a pawn, or something even worse than a pawn, like maybe a dummy surrogate that can't actually promote, for example. I see you're going for the Hungarian nibble twist. What does that mean? So yeah, this is pretty complicated, but let's try to weed out which ones make the most sense, because some of them are way too powerful, even from what I thought. The freeze seems actually pretty fair, because you're putting a lot of limits on it. So for example, you can freeze a piece, but you can only do it 3 times to the same one. You can't do the same one twice in a row, so that seems actually pretty fair. And what balances that out is if every piece is the same, then... like, let's pretend every piece is like a queen, for example. How do we get out of this here? Main menu, create, new, just... why doesn't it just let me... I don't want to care about the piece movement. I just care about, like... let me just make a custom position. Yeah, like, let me just... yeah, get rid of everything and then just put in something basic. You can make pretty elaborate movement patterns with this, but that's kind of less my concern than the abilities, which I don't know that you'd really even be able to do it. Oh, so it's letting me draw from the... so how do I, like, put it in if I want? What? Wait, that's checked, so what if I want to add it? Pawn, what the hell? It's not letting me do the most basic thing, which is just to add, like, just make a basic custom position. Adventure mode, I don't remember that even being there. Okay, whatever, we'll just look at this hypothetically for now, but again, don't worry about the movement patterns as much. So let's say that that would be what really confuses it, actually, is if you have to limit certain one's movement, because otherwise, see, this you can just do anywhere, right? It doesn't matter where you are, so it has nothing to do with your movement. Or maybe it should just be other god, period. That might make more sense. Other god can still use its ability, but it just can't move, right? In addition to that, warp anywhere. Of course, I can't spell. I'm a clown. Warp anywhere, cannot move or attack the same turn. That seems relatively fair. Or arguably, you can do that with other pieces too. Warp itself or warp any other piece. But again, then it can't move. And in fact, the act of using your ability should arguably cancel out your ability to move too that turn. But then, see, that might be too hefty of a cost. Like in the act of freezing somebody else, you're kind of freezing yourself too, because you can't move that turn. That seems kind of fair. So you would warp, but that would constitute your ability and the move. Mind control, take over a piece instead of capturing it. And so effectively you can't capture, and you have to be within a certain amount of range, probably like right in front of it. Similar to like a pawn capture. Revive or shield or heal. Protect itself or any other lord or pawn. You can only use this 3 times on each piece. Like, let me try to... I really don't understand how this program works anymore, because... Let's say you want to just create a custom position. It keeps wanting me to create a custom piece right when I go to do it. Like, let's say we get rid of this, or... I don't know what a lot of this is. This is very complicated. This is like the elephant in Chaturanga, except it's actually still better because it can move between either one of those. Let me see. All I want to do is create like a custom board. Right, not just choose the board. And I just want to use like other pieces to just represent what each of these lords is going to be instead of the vanilla pieces. So it doesn't even matter what the movement pattern is right now. Okay, make a new piece. Fine. So I don't care. I just want it to kind of look different. And yeah, of course, this will be dead online. I don't think I ever even tried to do it, but you know, these kind of games aren't going to have a very good player base. Use the board. Oh yeah, see, I like stuff like this. You can create like a funnel point so everything has to go through, even though it doesn't entirely make sense with the movement patterns. Like, you would need pieces that move a little differently to make this make sense. They already like had to sack a piece basically. Or now they're just playing really badly anyway. Yes, he leads to a lot of very difficult spots, although the knight is probably much better than the bishop here. Okay, let me go back. Let me try to understand once more. If I'm creating just a custom position, why is this so difficult to do? I can get rid of this. Now, how do I add another piece back in? I either want them to look all the same or just something different than the vanilla pieces. So, shared online. I didn't mean to do that. Add tile, add piece. Okay, here we go. So let me... It should have other piece appearances, doesn't it? I thought I had like all the weird looking stuff. Add a tile, remove tile, identify. Okay, let's just make them all the queen then. And if there's some way I can distinguish one from another. Which window? I don't know what that even does. And then we'll do the other way, the same thing. Black queens. The pawns would function relatively the same way, right? There's no reason to really change that around too much. Yeah, the biggest confusion would be the movement patterns to look for. Which window? This might be a really good program too. There was something online too that I always would use, and they took it offline, unfortunately. It was like a site where you could just make custom positions and custom pieces and stuff. Promotion would be, of course, again, to a lord. In this case, we're just treating it as a queen. But there has to be a way that you can... there has to be a way that you can distinguish the queens from one another. That's kind of all I want to do. Forest of Entanglement. If you go to each of these, then you just have to. I swear there was a way to do like other piece appearances, right? Something that looks like a bird or something that looks like just something else. Force of entanglement, I don't really care about that. How do I get out of just this basic function? Okay, let's say I was to try to do it. Okay, let me try to make a piece to try to represent if I can choose a different appearance. I swear you could do that. Rules, attack, finish. Piece appearance. Ah, yeah, here, like this, basically. Berserker Bishop. Okay, so let me commit one to each of these movement patterns. This is the point. So freezing time would make sense with which one? This is Berserker set, Centaur, Classic, Courier, Geometry, Helios, Medieval, Nature, Restrictors, Warden, Trojan Horse, Peacekeeper, Anchor. The Peacekeeper could almost be the one that's like the mind control one. Yeah, let's make that mind controller description. Basically just we have to make them kind of more clear. I'm kind of just speculating on some of these, but mind control, take over a piece instead of capturing. Attacks like a pawn, so it's very limited with that. Although that doesn't necessarily mean that the movement pattern has to be like that either. Piece can 2 square advance on its first move. No, I won't let it do that. Can 3 square advance for its first move. Can 4 square advance for its first move. Can attack with en passant. No. Can castle like a king. No. The piece can castle like a rook, hopping just over the other piece. You know, will it have a way for me to do the mind control mechanic? Probably not. Hopping just over the other piece requires the other piece. This piece can put in check. Can be put in check. No. The piece cannot be captured. The piece can capture iron pieces. The piece can only capture iron pieces. The piece can attack without moving. Maybe the lord should be like immune to being captured by the pawns too, but that would be kind of stupid. It should be hard enough to do that anyway. The piece can attack without moving. Which actually that would have to be true because it would mind control it, or it wouldn't capture is kind of the point. At all though. Nearby pieces cannot attack. Nearby pieces cannot move passively. Nearby pieces cannot be captured. But that doesn't mean what it means. That I'm trying to look for where this cannot be captured, like cannot attack, period. When the piece is captured, also the attacker is also captured. Yeah, that could almost be the ability of something, one of these. This piece switches places with pieces instead of capturing them. Now that's sort of partially true, but it would also, yeah, I don't know what the movement would be with this, because it's like you control the thing, but then you start moving that instead of itself. So then what happens to it? It doesn't go away. It sort of just should stay there, or the ability transplants itself. It can only do it once. Maybe that should be it. It sacrifices itself to take over something else for them, and then now you control that the rest of the time. Which seems it's a strong ability, but it also seems like you're giving up your piece to not only capture one of theirs, but to also take it over for the rest of the game. When it captures, it is also captured. This piece cannot be captured until it has captured a piece. The description of this piece and the way it moves is hidden during play. When it captures, it is also captured. And also it is just that cannot be captured by ranged attackers. Can only move or attack when it has a neighbor. Where's the one where it switches places with it? Yeah, that's kind of how it would work, but again, it would move basically just like a pawn. That means it like flies over it, but there was some confusion here. Like, what if I just get rid of that one then? Hop attacks, but see, I don't want it to hop. I just want it to not go there at all. Okay, let's say we do each of these. Now this causes some confusion again with the jumping. I don't want it to be able to jump there. I want it to just only capture and move like that. Or oh, that's just the attack then. Why has it always got to be 2 though? Why can't it just be 1? That's so weird. Jump there. This is a little more complicated to do than I thought. I don't want it to jump. I want it to just... I think I remember figuring out how to do this too, and it was super complicated. Because all you're trying to do is get the single movement pattern out. Right, so if you're doing... you don't want it to hop. You want it to just go 1 square only. This should just move like a pawn, basically. 1, 1, 1, 1, but not a hop, just a basic... That is so weird that it wouldn't just let you do the 1 square movement. So it can move like a rook, but only one way. Fine, maybe I'll let it move too, because I can't figure out actually how this works. Rook slide moves. Now let's say we take that away. That is so weird that it wouldn't let you do that. Well, since I know how I want it to move, I'll just self-enforce it for now, but there must be a way to do it. I just don't know how. So we're not treating it like a knight hop move. We're just treating it like it can move like a pawn, and then you also have the ability to capture like a bishop here. Only one, or I mean, no, you wouldn't even need the other downside. Okay, so it would just be like this, or these don't even have to be there. So you would just attack 1 to the right there. Okay, that seems pretty much good. It is very hard for a human to learn how to use this piece. Well, it's not meant for a human, it's meant for a lord. So let's see if we create a game with that. Or let's just create the rest of them. Okay, so that was the mind control one. How about the AI? How hard would it be for the AI to learn how to use the piece? So this will be the freeze one. I'm trying to go by the appearances, I guess. More so than anything. Where did we get to see that? Piece appearance. Trojan horse. It almost seems like the pawns would be appropriate to add abilities to as well, but that would make it way too complicated. There's got to be something that looks like something to do with time, which maybe an anchor sort of makes sense because you're kind of like weighing other stuff down. I don't really care too much as long as these are all different. Freezer. So this will be the same description that we have here. Freeze time. Freeze 1 piece every turn. Cannot freeze the same piece 2 times in a row. Can freeze each piece a total of 3 times. Other god can still use its ability even if frozen. And cannot move when the turn it uses the ability, as that would be true for all of the gods, right? All the lords. So none of these things really matter as far as the movement. The piece can be put in check. No, the piece cannot be captured. I don't care about the iron pieces. Nearby pieces, enemy pieces cannot attack. Nearby enemy pieces cannot move passively. Nearby friendly pieces cannot be captured. None of this is going to really adequately do what I want it to do. Cannot be captured by ranged attackers. Can only move when it has a neighbor. Fallow fields. This piece switches places with pieces instead of capturing them. Same moves, attacks, and rules as the most recently moved opponent, like a doppelganger. This captures a piece that's also captured. Cannot be captured until it's captured. Okay, so none of that really is going to help with that. So how should the movement pattern be with this? Maybe I should make them all kind of like... Yeah, what if I severely limit their movements? Like everything moves like a pawn, basically, and is pretty weak. Because see, when you get into these custom movement patterns, it becomes sort of arbitrary and random because it doesn't make sense. You know, you want them to feel as equal as possible. Like, let me actually try to start it like that. So the emphasis is all on the abilities, not on anything else. So it would be the same thing where it can move like a pawn, basically. You can't do that. And then it would capture like a bishop, but still like a pawn. And then I swear there was a way to do it. I just can't remember. But that's good enough for now. So you do this. It is hard for a human to learn how to use the piece. And then, okay, so that's the freeze time one. And it doesn't even understand what I'm saying in the description. So, it wouldn't understand that as far as making it difficult. Warp anywhere. So whether you should be able to warp itself or anybody else, I'm not sure. I'll just say, teleporter. So you have warp anywhere, cannot attack or move the same turn. And then, well, I guess I would say it can't move the same turn, but that kind of makes the point anyway. So let's see what would make sense for this. I guess I'll just do that. It doesn't always have to be super intuitive, but it is easy for a human to learn how to use this piece. How does it know, like, all it should be taking into account is the movement, which I haven't even done yet. So this will be, or I'm sorry, this is the wrong thing. It's going to be just the movement, 1 square up, and then it'll be the attack, 1 square in each direction here. Again, I'm going to kind of ignore the jump. I don't know why. Or maybe it will work that way. It's jumping that, but I don't know if it'll count that. Like, it's jumping and then it can go there, but we're not putting the next movement, so it might not be able to do that. So this is, this is not where it's trading so much. It's just trading places with it. It's just more like it can move anywhere. Or I guess that kind of would be the way you would portray this. This would actually affect the movement pattern because is there a rule that says it cannot move and attack at the same time? Cannot be captured, cannot... There should be one that it just can't attack itself, right? This piece cannot attack. This piece can attack without moving. How about move without attacking? Nearby pieces cannot attack. Nearby cannot attack. Friendly pieces cannot be captured. Okay, Zhang Ji. Cannot be captured by ranged attackers. Can only move or attack when it has a neighbor. Switches places is almost what I want, but the only way to actually convey this then would be that it can move anywhere. Just anywhere it wants, right? Which is almost hard to convey that too. Right, even beyond a queen, where you can move at these weird angles. You can literally go anywhere that you want, but you just can't attack that same turn. You're kind of left as a sitting duck, so you have to be a little smart about it. And then your attack is still limited to what you would be doing as a pawn. So that kind of makes sense. When you limit their movement pattern, it makes it much more satisfying. Because again, their powers might be overpowered, but their actual, this isn't going to work at all in practice, but just with my acknowledgement of it, right, I can kind of simulate what it would be like. Warp anywhere, cannot move or attack the same turn. Mind control we did. Okay, revive, heal. So again, this one's kind of convoluted, but the way that we would do it, see, what helps the most is the appearance. That way I can always distinguish and keep it in my mind as far as it would have to be something to do with a healer. A priest. That looks very odd. A spear, sentry. Or yeah, that kind of makes sense too if it's going to be the one with the shield. So it's going to be blocking for somebody else, or actually I'm not sure about that. Should it be able to absorb the hit for it, or should it just be able to shield a hit, period? I guess with the limit restriction. So shield, protect itself or any other lord or pawn. Right now, is that for just that turn, or can only use 3 times on each piece? Can I use 2 times? Like, it'd be like a predictive element, like you're protecting it for this next turn, or you're just giving it a shield counter where it's protected, period. That seems like it'd be way too busted, because then you could start to stack it up on everybody. Protect itself or any other lord or pawn for the next turn, or for this turn. You do it, and then your opponent moves. So for whatever they were going to do. Can only use 3 times on each piece, not use 2 times in the same. Because yeah, if you remove that one restriction, it becomes absolutely broken. That, oh, you can just use it, and then the next time they get hit. I was almost thinking of that, but that's way too strong. So I could do it on this pawn, then for the rest of the game, right, that's going to have a shield counter on it. That's just way too strong. So this is going to be irrelevant, basically. I won't even worry about the rule set right now, because I'm just doing it manually. So this is going to also be the same thing. It'll attack like a normal piece, like a pawn, and it'll move like that. Pretty simple. And so what you have is the ability to consider that the shield is, again, just the imaginary mechanic that we're doing. So protect itself or any other lord for the next turn. So you could, for example, use the warp ability, go wherever you want, and then protect it with this one. So then you would know that, well, but see, that doesn't make sense, because you wouldn't be able to do it quite like that. Or does that mean you can use all the... Yeah, something about this doesn't entirely make sense. If you use the ability, you can't move. But then if you do it... Oh, I don't know. Like, you're not able to use every single ability every single turn. It's just a question of, if you use the ability, you can't move at all. But if you don't use the ability, you can just move like a normal piece. You'd have to make that decision. Or maybe you should be able to do both. But that's the whole point, is that you can't do that. You know something's going to be taken, and so you save it. But you couldn't really do it, like I said, that you warp with the other piece, but not immediately into danger, but where it'll be in danger next turn. And then you give it the shield that turn. I'm not sure, really. That one doesn't seem good enough, because you're just buying a turn just to protect one piece. Whereas by that logic, you could have maybe just moved it anyway. Whether that should be like an ongoing thing that you can just do forever. Like, maybe this should be the dynamic to it. If you say, where is it? Like, you can keep the counter on, but you can only have one active counter at a time. Maybe like that. So it's not just for the next turn. For the next hit that it takes. So it would be immune to that. So can only use, oh god. Can only use 3 times on one piece, can I use 2 in a row? and it's not for the next turn. I don't know why that just went away. For the next hit it takes, and then the point is that stays on each piece for 3 turns, right? But it doesn't mean it's invincible. It means it's absorbing, you know, the single hit. But, or no, maybe this is too dynamic then. You can only use 1 time, period. That would make more sense then. You can only use it 1 time and it lasts 3 turns. So then you have to figure out, but that still seems too strong then, because then every single turn you're doing it where, yeah, I don't know. Or any other lord for the next hit it takes. So every single turn you'll be doing it. Stays on a piece for 3 whole turns. But that's looking to be like the strongest ability in the whole fucking game, because you'll end up doing it on every single one. So every turn you're immune. And it sort of stacks up. It should maybe be 2 turns. Yeah, 3 is too much. We'll change it. Because if it's 1 turn, then it feels almost useless. But if it's... Right, because like you'll do it. And so I just didn't move this turn just to make a piece immune. Let's make it 2 turns then. So it'll be this turn and the following turn. Okay, that seems fair. Then what else do we have? Ranged attack. It'll be something that looks like a bishop, or what else do we have? A cannon, an archer. So I can't really type in this position. Okay, archer, and then this one seems also busted because attacks entire row, file or row, damaging your own units as well. Limited to your 4 squares, which means they have to be on your territory to do it. Right, like your line of scrimmage. So that makes it fair, because only once they start to encroach on that will this be useful. If you use it before that, and it'll presumably put your pieces in harm's risk, because you're always going to have a lot of pieces there. Right, so it'll... I like that. That seems high risk, high reward. So in this sense, you would say, well, this level of nuance of attacking doesn't make sense, because it's not about this. It's about literally the squares on the board, right? You can only... This is too confusing of a thing. Like, you would think, oh, you can make it attack, you know, everything on here, but that's not how it's going to work, right? It's not accounting for... It's accounting for the base movement, not what square I'm choosing on the board. So if I'm saying it can move, you know, even all of these... It's interpreting that as being able to move backwards, so it still doesn't work that way. So the movement would be the same thing, just like the pawn thing here. So I'm trying to simplify the movement patterns as much as possible, which kind of makes sense because, again, that's not the most important thing about this. And in some ways, this might work really well because it's a very minimalistic touch that you're doing. Like, so now will it say that during the course of the game? Every time I'm moving a piece, I'll hover over it and it'll say what it does. Because that's the way that card games do it. Like, even if you've never played it before, you can kind of figure it out on the fly because you just read the description, you know. So it's the same thing here. That would make it very intuitive because you could play somebody else's version, and even if you have no idea what's going on, and even if the program can't enforce all these elaborate rules, you can just follow it manually by seeing what it does. So that one's actually not bad. Shield a hit we already kind of did. Sacrifice itself to destroy another piece, which is kind of not... Maybe it should be more like a poison counter type thing. So you put a poison counter on something. That kind of makes more sense. So like so when it dies, it also like a rogue type whatever. So you put the poison, and the way that you do that is censor. Right, so you use the cauldron. So you say, put a poison, or maybe it should have some limit to poison counter on a piece, on your piece. it lasts 3 turns, after which that piece dies. If it is captured in those 3 turns, the piece that captures it dies, and if not, then you could say it explodes and kills everything around it. That might be too much. So after the 3 because then that forces them to almost try to kill it. And even saying you can only use it once doesn't even matter on the same piece. It wouldn't like reset the count. Obviously you can only use it once because it's going to die in those 3 turns anyway. It lasts 3 turns, after which that piece dies. If it's captured in those 3 turns, that the piece that captures it dies. If not, then it explodes, destroying. That seems way too strong though too, because they have 3 turns to try to deal with it, but they have to give up a piece to be able to do it. But you're giving up a piece to do it too. That is kind of tough, because poison counter lasts 3 turns, after which it dies. If it's captured in those turns, the piece that captures it dies. If it's not captured, it explodes, destroying itself and everything within 1 square, which seems totally busted actually, because that's just way too much actually. There's got to be some way to restrict that. Because all you'd have to do is get it on enemy territory within the 3 turns, even though they know it's going to be... This one I'm not entirely satisfied with. It's the same concept as that. Like, you sacrifice yourself to destroy something, but not exactly right. In terms of, put a poison counter on your piece. Meaning any piece. It lasts 3, which you probably wouldn't want to use this on your own lord, but you might. Lasts 3 turns, after which it dies. If it's captured in those 3 turns, the piece that captures it dies. If it's not, then it should just die, and that's the sacrifice that you make. But that's not enough, is it? Destroying itself and everything. It's got to be like limited somehow. Within 1 square, horizontal, and diagonally, like behind. Meaning, not in front. I think that might make it fair. So, like, for example, it would die, and so, it would destroy what's here, 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 and here. But to destroy what's in front of it seems like bullshit, because you'll just run them into your opponent, and then... And also, you can't have more than 1 of these abilities active on one thing at the same time. You could say that, too. So when it has a poison counter, it can't also have a shield counter. Or maybe you could combo it and do it like that. This is so much more elaborate than I thought it was going to be. It's like it would blow up this, but it wouldn't blow up what's in front. Because what that would do is, again, you get it near their lords and just destroy all of them. That seems a little bit busted, perhaps. This would obviously need some playtesting, but... The core concept is it's meant to be even, and it's meant to... Like, every piece is equal, which is maybe debatable. And it's also meant to be where... Every piece, it's more an emphasis on the powers than the movement. The movement should be very basic. Not saying that they have to move like a pawn per se. But this is one where the rules actually do make sense to use, like, but not really. Or maybe this guy should just innately have that characteristic, where when it gets taken, the attacker, like, that's a passive ability that it just has. But that's not true, because... Well, maybe it actually should, but no, it's mainly about using the ability and relying on the ability. So how many is that we've actually made out of 8? Archer, Freezer, 2. Mind Controller, 3. Protector, 4. Rogue, 5. Teleporter, 6. So we would need 2 more to make this make sense. Again, I'm not saying it's perfectly balanced, but there are some really good ideas in here. This one is actually probably my favorite one. Because you have, and even this doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'm thinking about it in a different way. Move another piece instead of itself. But in order to do that move, right? This should almost be a phasic thing. You get to move a piece and you get to use an ability every turn. But meaning the same piece, okay, that would have to be the rule set. Like, because see, why would I say this otherwise? Move a piece instead. So, in other words, I'll use this Lord's ability to move a different piece. But the act of using that ability means that I can't do anything else anyway. So it makes no sense. So I sacrifice this piece's move, or I use this piece's ability to move another piece. But instead of using that ability, I could have just moved that other piece anyway. So that there's got to be a phasic element. You get the first phase is you use your Lord's, pick one Lord's ability and you can use it. Then you can move a different piece other than the Lord that just used the ability. Or vice versa. You could maybe use the ability at the end of the turn. So you would have to have that where every turn you get to use one ability of one Lord, and then every turn you get to move one piece. It has to be different than the Lord whose ability you just used. That at least makes sense. So we have a rule set even outside of whether we have the piece. So we have two more to do. So you could give like an extra move basically to a piece. But maybe not allow it to capture. That would make perfect sense, actually. So this is maybe some kind of a magic user, sentry, Taylor, Valentine King, Guardian. Let me think. What else do we have? Just cook. I don't know. None of these really seem to match. Okay, a monk would allow you to I'll even just call it that. Would allow you to move another piece. So basically give an extra move to a piece, not assuming movement, not Lord thing. So allow a piece to move a second, or allow a move for another piece. Does not allow use of Lord. Well, that goes without saying. Not that. So allow a move for another piece, which would mean, again, I could move a pawn for my move, and then I use my Lord ability to allow that pawn to move again. Right? That would be the point. Or just a different piece. Here, you would be not even sacrificing this piece's ability to move. Well, you would, because I've kind of said that anyway, but you would say, okay, the monk uses its ability. Now I can move another piece. And then I can also make my normal move. So I could make two moves. Right? That would absolutely be fair. I think that's actually one that makes sense. Right? That doesn't seem too busted because a lot of these maybe will turn out to be busted. I'm not saying they're going to be perfect. It was another piece, and then the final one is going to be the one that takes up space on the board, which I love this one because it seems sort of fair. Again, whether you should be able to do it on your enemy territory, kind of like duck chess, but it could be something to do with the tower, I guess. The fact that you, or let's say you use the flag, like we're marking our territory. Whatever, mapper. So we're trying to just do this. Take up a square temporarily. 3 turns, nobody can cross or occupy that square. Cannot do the same square twice. Right, so you can only do each one once ever in the whole course of the game. And you can only do one at a time, or... No, maybe not. See, that's the thing where it gets difficult. That means I could... Well, but you're giving up your... Maybe not. You can do it. So within 3 turns, you could have 3 squares at a time that are all not occupiable. And you can even do it on your enemy's territory, which could lead to some annoying things. But by the time you put the third one, the first one is gone. And remember, you're not using any of your other abilities in the process, so maybe that makes it fair. Okay, this is going to be very, very elaborate, but let me try to play it against myself. And again, the fact that I have the pieces in here doesn't mean that they're going to work at all how I intended, but hopefully at least lets you read them like... Okay, let's play and I'll play against basically myself. Or I could play against... No, I would have to play against myself because... Now, does this mean I make a board that allows me to use those pieces too? Because... Okay, that's making a new piece, but let me go back. So this is more just for a visual aid. It's not really going to... Okay, get rid of everything, and then... The pawns are basically going to be what they are anyway. So I'll have to just imaginarily treat it like I'm doing. So... Let me disable everything besides just my base. Wait, where'd it go? Okay, everything besides the base ones that we want. So you have the archer, we have the freezer, we have the mapper, we have the mind controller, we have the monk, we have the protector, we have obviously just the base pawn, and then we have the rogue, we have the teleporter. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now from here, we'll go ahead and put these out. Go ahead, fill the black pawns back up, and then we get to do this. So yeah, at least I adequately explained what I was thinking, but again, it's not as easy as saying, okay, so the monk, again, there's only one on each side, so quite frankly, it doesn't matter too much where each one is, but let me try to think of a logical position for each one. In a way, you should arguably be able to choose that too. It could be 960. You can put, because it doesn't matter, right? They only move like pawns, so it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Mind controller could be on the edge of the board, and the mapper could be here, like where the bishop would be. And then the freezer could be kind of where the king or queen would be. It really doesn't matter for this part. The archer could be kind of where the bishop would be here. Kind of like these are long range ones that are affecting parts on the board as well. And then the ones that kind of affect each other should be kind of this way, like, or I guess that's not even entirely true, but teleporter could be here. And then who is left? The poisoner. Rogue. So the rogue sits here, and then we kind of want the same exact thing for the other side. So let's just go one by one. Monk goes here. Whoops. Damn it. Monk. I mean, this is a pretty good program. Don't get me wrong. It's just what I'm trying to do is maybe a bit too elaborate. So mind controller goes there. Then but yeah, this is one element that you could certainly say you can choose, right? You can choose where to put your pieces like in 960. And I don't immediately see like a meta reasoning for why one would be better than the other. Like, oh, put the freezer here. Like, why does it matter? The movement pattern is like a pawn, so that doesn't matter, right? What it's going to be doing. And then also the ability you're using, but you're not moving when you're using it. So why does it really matter too much where you are? That's not what I meant to even do. Well, one goes there, the protector. Oh, I'm acting like it's in alphabetical order or something. Now we have the archer, and then we have the ability to make sure everything's black. So we got the rogue and then the teleporter. Again, some of these abilities are a little busted, or they require a lot of qualification that I put into them. Like, it works in a very specific way that you have to limit it somehow. Or whoops. Okay, so it makes sense, obviously, in an 8x8 board because you have the ability to rules human plays as both. Why not? And then stalemate is a loss if a player cannot move, skip their turn. Board name, so this is going to be actually Lord's Chess. And again, it's somewhat easy for the AI to think about the board, very hard for a human to think about the board. Yeah, just talk shit about humans, I guess. Now we'll actually play a game on that. And again, I'm going to self-enforce. Now, is there a way that you can see what the piece is supposed to do? It should give you that sort of loadout and description, which I thought it would. Oh, they're even giving like a little space here, which is not meant to actually be there. Identify piece. Yeah, see that? Wait, what does it say even? The classic pawn moves forward. Or yeah, it's going to tell you everything there, but I kind of know it anyway, or we have the little document, but yeah, this is what we want to look for here. So I'm white, so let me think about what's the most overpowered lord ability that I could use, and then I have to acknowledge it myself, the effect. So remember, this one allows you to teleport. Or is it anything else too? I guess I want to defer to this a bit more because okay, this is a regular tile piece you can move here. White mind controller, take over a piece. Oh, never mind, that's not it. And these don't really even matter. So the point is, it can take over a piece, so it would have no value right now. It has to be right next to it. So that's gonna be irrelevant. This one is going to be, it should let you just click on it and see that. This is a white monk piece. Allow a move for another piece. So you could, again, you could sacrifice your thing and then you could move twice, which maybe at this point in the game could be good. Then you have, this is going to take up the square on the thing, on the map. And then, I mean, this will just tell you everything too. The archer is going to attack entire row only on your 4 squares, damaging your own units as well. Right, so if you could end up killing your own pieces. Protect itself or any other lord for the next hit. Can only use 1 time on each piece. Stays on each piece for 2 turns. Allow a move for another piece. Take up a square temporarily. Put a poison counter on your piece. It lasts 3 turns, after which the piece dies. If it's captured in those 3 turns, the piece will... the piece that captures it will die. If not, then it explodes, destroying itself and everything within 1 square horizontal and behind. Again, just because destroying everything in front seems a little bit too good. Right, that would be kind of bullshit. Freeze time, freeze 1 piece every turn. Cannot freeze the same piece 2 times in a row. Can freeze a piece a total of 3 times. Other god can still use its ability even if it's frozen. So that means that the freeze only works for their ability to move, which maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it should do that too, but that's fine. Take over a piece instead of capturing attacks like a pawn. Again, they all attack like a pawn. Warp anywhere, cannot move or attack the same turn. So let me just do something basic. Okay, here we want... Or is that part of my movement insistence that I thought... Because this is supposed to be able to move anywhere. And these aren't meant to move like that. I'm just... Somehow I couldn't figure out how to make them move like a pawn. Now, this should be able to move anywhere, though. Like, literally, even on... If you want to put it here, yeah, you can. But maybe that should be the rule set. It can move anywhere on your... No. It really should be able to move anywhere. So I don't know how I messed that up. Let me actually try to change that. Or what? Go back to the... Okay, let me see. We have the teleporter. So this should be able to move anywhere on the board. We'll change 1 design. How do you make it so that you can actually move there? First of all, based on this, you would think it should have been able to move further than even what it said, but if you take away the knight moves, it should just be able to keep going then, like that, and then well, maybe that's good enough, but realistically, it should allow you to... Well, obviously there... No, even without that, like, oh, the pawn's in the way, but it doesn't matter if the pawn's in the way. It should have been able to go anywhere. Yeah, that's already something difficult, because whether you think... Maybe everything should just be a knight hop move. So that means it can just go literally without even worrying about that, and also just any square on the board that these other movement patterns can't account for, because it's trying to mimic like the queen by saying that, you know, oh, you're combining the bishop and the rook, but it doesn't actually work. Let's see if that's going to work here. This would take a tremendous amount of play testing too, but it seems a little bit too complicated, honestly, but I don't get it. Like, is it... I don't know what's happening. Let me maybe try to restart. Draw, agreed. Okay, let me make a new one. We'll take that, Lord's Chess. Or maybe I have to redo the thing. Maybe I have to redo the... the thing here. Like, is it going to be the same movement pattern where... Why wouldn't that work? I don't get it. Why would it be limited like that? We'd have to look at the... That's so weird. This is something that you actually need the game to do, because otherwise... Let's see what it says. This is still showing like maybe the old movement pattern. I can't tell. Okay, let me remake it then. Or can't I just edit it if I... edit this and just replace this with the new teleporter, even though... Wait, but this is acting like it's a game now. View board, edit board, yes. Okay, get rid of that, get rid of that. Let me re-put them on here, and now the movement pattern should be different. Even though it said, like, oh, are you sure you want to edit, which would imply that it's going to change it. Okay, go ahead, try that. So the teleporter is going to be the piece that it just doesn't want to... A board name, just so replace it, save the board, okay, and then go back, play, try it. So it can move like maybe one extra square now, which makes no sense, because think about what I'm showing its capability of being. It doesn't want me to go past the line of scrimmage. Like, maybe I could almost pass a turn. You should always have that ability to do. Like, you could go there or something. Yeah, maybe I'll do that just so I can show this. Right, so let me change the board again, and then we'll... damn it. That is the cauldron thing. Let me make one square there. So what I could do is I could just... If I want to pass a turn, I'll just do that, where... I can let what the interaction I want to happen actually happen properly. So let's do it again. Okay. Like, I want the teleporter to move, like, somewhere super far. So I'll go here. Then I'll just pass the turn. That's not an actual move. And then, let's say I wanted it to go here, right? So I can just acknowledge that, so I pass the turn. So that was the that was the Lord's ability. Now, on top of that, I can move a piece too, right? So it's still turn one again. I hate having to do it like that, but you're going to have to. And that might not even work for passing a turn, because it seems like mainly the teleporter would be the issue, because most of this stuff I can just do manually. But then again, you're not really even playing the game, because you have to... Like, if I use the archer's ability now, I could destroy that, right? So how do I do that? You'd have to do this more in the board editor than the actual game. That's so difficult to do. Right? Like, let's go in the board editor, and then can I just manually move it as I'm supposedly editing it? I can just... this is so annoying. So let's say I wanted to move here. Okay, so I want to move the teleporter like as far as it can go. So for example, I'll get rid of that. Why did that turn it into a pawn? Move piece. So let's go here. Right now, that's my Lord move as white. And the reason why I moved here instead of here is because if I moved there, then they could destroy their own pawn, but also one of my lords in the process, right? So that's my Lord ability. That's not my actual move of a piece. And then I'll make it so that the pawns can't move twice either. They have to move only once. So now I can move a piece, and of course I can't move a lord because they move like pawns. So let's actually move like this one maybe to free up the mind controller. Now black gets to move, and they could do something similar, like, okay, let's say they move here, and then they also they want to free up the. Now these can't capture each other because this is meant to. Whoops. They're meant to only capture like a pawn. But maybe I could change that and make them move it more like a king, but whatever. So that they can't even. Yeah, that maybe makes it convoluted. Let's say that they can move like a king. Right, so they still have a limited movement pattern, but let's say they bring it out to here, or they can't. They have to be on. Or no, they can, but then. Right, it would just have to not be in the archer's row. Right, so if you were to show that interaction, so they do that, and then they could move something here, like a pawn. Then let's say we were to go ahead and let me freeze a piece. So we'll try to freeze this one here, right? So that's our ability for, we're using this guy, and then we can move this, like to attack that. So now it's frozen, and we move the pawn. So now we're going to be sure to take it. So now their move is going to be, even though it's frozen though, they could still use the teleport. So now they can go, they can use the teleport and they can actually go back and save themselves, let's say. Which maybe that shouldn't be the case. The freeze should prevent them from doing. But then again, if it was any other piece, it wouldn't matter, right? This one happens to conveniently have the one that would move itself. But like this guy could poison somebody, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be, it's still going to be captured. So technically, let's do this. Right, that's the Lord move, and then the movement they can make is, it can move like a king. I'm going to adjust that. So like we just move that out. So this is actually pretty good, but I have to play it in this board editor mode because, can I like zoom in maybe or something? Because it's too complicated for the program to even handle it otherwise. So now we move as white. We just did the freeze, so now we can't do the freeze again, or at least we can't do it on the same thing. So we have the teleporter there. The archer would want to move, but basically not even that you can only do it on your own territory, I guess, but you can only do it 3 squares ahead. So it would have to move all the way up to here, and then it would start to be able to do that, right? That would make more sense and be fair. So in other words, it seems like that at the beginning, but it's like it can do like 3 squares either way, right? So we can go up to my own thing and kill that right now if it wanted to. So for it to affect their back rank and the lords, it would have to go all the way up to here. So you have to stop that from happening. So let me maybe try to do that. We'll move, or no. First we do the Lord ability, which is going to be, let's say that we poison. No, but there's no, yeah, let's say we poison the teleporter. So we'll save that, right? We have to remember this now. And then we'll move this up. So now anything that captures this will itself get captured too. Now their move is going to be that the, let's occupy a square maybe with something. I guess which window could indicate the fact that, okay, we've poisoned this. Which window now? Click a second square. No, what if I just want to mark the piece, period? Like, I don't know how you'd really do that. What was I saying? That we want to like mark a square, remove tile. So now for 3 squares, like, well, you can do that anywhere though. Like you could do it, okay, let's say we want to remove this tile, so now you can't move that. There, you'd have to move it around or something like that. And then black is also going to move a piece here, like he's trying to get this out for some reason. Okay, I'm not saying either of these players are good, but now I'm going to, now I can't move on to there, but I can move around it. We're gonna make them move more like kings. And then So what do we have? Just bring the monk up, but before I do that, I'm going to let's give like a piece and another ability to move. So we'll give the mind controller the ability to move, so I'll let it move twice. So that was the monk's ability that we just used. Right, and then this guy is still poisoned, so he has it's the second turn of the poison count, which means he's going to explode right now. Or that was the first turn. It would be this next turn, I guess. Right, we did it that turn. So now it would happen this turn. If I apply it that turn, it won't happen until my next turn, after my next turn. So then this guy is going to, let's say he's going to use the freeze ability on it, right? So now it can no longer move, but it can still teleport. And so now I can teleport it right in. Yeah, see, this is a broken mechanic already. Because now I can do that. So, but they still have a chance to take it, is the point, though, so it doesn't matter. But it does matter because, so that's the Lord ability, right? Even though it's frozen, and so it couldn't move. But see, it couldn't move anyway, so what's the point of that? If it couldn't move, maybe the freeze should make it so that it negates their ability as well. Would kind of make sense. So now they're going to have to capture it, and in the process give up their... Whoops. They would have to capture it and give up whatever piece captures it. Because if they don't, it's going to blow up from the poison thing as soon as this turn ends. Right, their turn ends. So whether they freeze it or not doesn't matter now. So what if they would have to choose which one they want to do it with? So they could use the Lord's ability to protect. So let's use the protection ability from this guy on the archer. Then we'll capture this with the archer. Therefore, now the protect counter is gone, but this thing is safe, right? So that was the right way to play it with that mechanic. That's actually a good way to demonstrate that, because otherwise that something would have had to give itself up, right? Then we have the ability to... imagine how complicated this would be to actually design it so that it acknowledges all of these mechanics, right? It'd be virtually impossible. Now, even I can't keep track. I'd need like to use this to, you know, take notes on actually what is happening on which turn in terms of because like now what stage is that thing on the the tile, right? Because that's been negated for a few turns. Let me actually restart. This is way too complicated. Play Lord's Chess again. Okay, but I can't play it because I have to be in the board editing mode, and it's too far away when you do that too. Let's see. Okay, go to create, and then go to, or I mean, wait, how did I even do that? Play, use the board, but then I somehow went to like edit board, identify board. Yeah, I would make the freeze then make them unable to use their ability as well, or maybe not, because we sort of dealt with that, but that seems fair. The freeze can not only prevent them from moving, but also from using their ability that turn. You could argue that maybe each lord should be immune to its own ability too, like the poison one can't be killed by the poison ability or something like that. You could have that immunity. Okay, added this board, yes. Okay, now we can go for this. So let me... I'll take notes on it too. So like, okay, move one. This is how complicated it's going to be. But again, without it actually working properly, there's no other way to do it. So move one, we'll go, again, Lord phase, and then we'll go move, and then black, Lord phase, and move. I mean, it seems really elaborate, but this is just to convey what we're doing. So again, what are we going to do? We're going to say, the Lord phase, what would be the most logical thing to do at this point? You could either teleport, would make sense. Oh, whoops. You could either teleport, or you could possibly poison something, shield something. But again, those only last but so long. You could occupy a square. So let's do that. Okay, so the flag guy is going to mapper blocks, let's say this square here, which I'm not good with notation, but this would be like D6, right? D6. So this is going to be turn 1. So you have to keep that in mind, right? Then the move is going to be, so let me remove the tile then. So you prevent that pawn from advancing for whatever reason, and then you're going to move maybe that same pawn, put pressure on that file, I guess. Then here we're going to do as black. The move is going to be E3. Because you can't double push pawns either for whatever reason. I'm making it like that. And then, or not E3, it's a D3. And then black is going to be, okay, Lord phase is going to be that, again, poisoning is pointless right now. We could teleport. Doing that is pointless because that has a 3 range. Doing the shield is pointless because it'll run out. Did I put it as a 3-turn or a 2-turn shield? I think I put it as a 2-turn. I think even both of those are both the poison and that. So you do it, and then the next turn you have, right? So you have the next turn to set up for the suicide bombing, with the poison, or you have the next turn to set up for the shield sacrifice, basically. So if it does it the same turn, then it's kind of up to your opponent's whims a little bit too much. So the freeze you could always do at any point. The flag thing you could do at any point. The extra move you could do at any point. The mind control is only useful once you get really close in, so that's going to be limited. So they're going to, let's say they give the pawn an extra move, so it can move twice now, right? So to try to free up the mind controller, I guess, to do something. You're going to do monk gives mind controller, or no, gives pawn on A7 extra move, and then you go pawn from A7 to A5. Then also the count, or as we go here, okay, move to Lord phase, mapper block on D6 advances to the second count, right? So now it would be that's the second turn, so now the next turn it'll expire. Or if I say it lasts 3 turns, so it lasted that turn, it has to be like for 3 of their turns where they couldn't possibly use it. So it'll be, this is the second turn, then the next turn is the third turn, and then it expires after. So that's just the count. So now Lord phase, again, is going to be which move do I use? And it's going to be, see, now the mapper could block another square if I wanted to. But, obviously the count is still going, and whether that's really worth it or not, I don't know. So what is another one that would be useful? You can give a piece an extra move. The mind controller is kind of useless for now. That's the close range piece, obviously. You have to attack into something to actually be able to use it. And then the flagger, I could keep taking away squares, which isn't that big of a deal for now. The freeze effect is okay. Like, I could freeze the mind controller because I assume that's what they're trying to bring out. I could give something a shield counter. I don't really remember what did I say the counter is on each of these, like the protector. Is it 2 turns or 3 turns? Or it's not even letting me see it now. Protect itself or any lord for the next hit it takes. Only use 1 time on each piece. Stays on the piece for 2 turns. So it would be like, I make the move, like let's say I did it, right? Just hypothetically. I would do it on a piece, then I could move it. Then they would make their move. Then I would do something else. Then I would move a piece. So the shield counter is still intact. They would make their move, and then it would run out. So it would be for 2 of their turns, right? You can't look at it in terms of I do it, they make a move, and then now my next turn it's off, then that's pointless because yeah, okay. And the same thing happens with the poison count. So let's see. You would have like a hierarchy too of which pieces are expendable as far as like moving them out more. Like you want to move the mind controller out because you want it to actually do something. The monk, you want it to stay back because it's going to keep giving stuff extra turns. So like these are the ones that can do it from a passive point. Like the monk doesn't need to be out there to affect the board. The flagger doesn't need to be out there. The freeze doesn't need to be out there. This thing doesn't need to be out there. The archer does, so the archer needs to be out there a little bit. Ironic, actually, being an archer, but it needs to be within 3 squares of its target. This needs to be within 1 square of its target. And then the teleporter can go wherever it wants. So those are the pieces that you would never want to move. Some of these, you don't want to move the monk, you don't want to move the flagger, you don't want to move the freeze necessarily. I mean, eventually you might have to, but you have less of an incentive to move those. So the pieces you want to move are either the archer or the mind controller, more so, arguably, if you want to try to capture with them. Everything else can affect the board in different ways without needing to do that. So the Lord phase is, what am I going to do? And the answer is, let me use the teleporter. Goes to, again, you can go anywhere, but you have to be careful to some extent. Like, let's have it go actually on D5. And the reason why is you're sort of mocking them and testing them that, oh, you know, since you can't use that square either, you can't. But then again, it doesn't matter because you'll just threaten me with another pawn or something stupid. But I'll do it anyway. So you got the teleporter goes to D5, and then from there you have that's the Lord ability. Then you have the move is going to be now I can't move that same piece, right? Even if I teleported right within something range of attacking something. See, I could have teleported there and then capture, but I can't, right? Because you can't move that same piece. Otherwise, that would be busted. I could just go there and then just take it. And we're using the king movement pattern now, obviously, for each of these. Which, again, I can't even convey in a proper game, but it's okay. I'm doing it. This gets the point across. I just wish you could zoom into this a little more. So you do that, and now I want to move something. Again, the incentive is to move either the mind controller or the mind controller or maybe even the archer. So let me move this. So you're going to go pawn to EF6. Then you'll go to move, or no, it's still move 2. It's going to be black, though, where you go to Lord phase. So what other counters do we have? I guess the only counter we put was the block, right, which is on turn 2. We could freeze something if we felt like it's a concern. So, like, let's say we freeze the teleporter on so I will allow the freeze to not affect the Lord's ability. And the reason why I'll do that is because most of them aren't going to save it from being captured. Or maybe not. I don't know whether that should... No, maybe it should, because then otherwise it's too weak. Like, it just prevents them from moving, but... Okay, so you freeze teleporter on D5. And then the other point is that you have the ability to basically... You can move whatever you want. Like, let's say we're going to move the mind controller to, what is that? A7. Okay, so now from there, you're going to go as white. So now white can't move. I'm really torn on that idea. Whether you have the ability to... Should I be able to move the teleporter? Or not move it, but should I be able to use the ability? Because what's the point of a freeze in a game where so much of it is to do with abilities? It should be like you're locking down their ability. So I'll say, okay, so now it's white, or it's going to be move 3. So the mapper block on D6 is at its 3rd charge. So after their turn, it's going to run out, right? The block that we have where that square is in you can't move there, you can't move around. Yeah, well, there's no horse, so it doesn't matter, but you can't move there at all, right? So he can't move that pawn onto their d6. I can't move there, nobody can move there, right? So it's kind of just blocking them out, kind of like duck chess. And then the lord move is going to be, now maybe I could negate the ability of the freeze. Actually, I could do that, right? Logically, I could do it on the teleporter, right, to allow him to move anyway, but I'd have to give up my lord move to do it, I guess, or maybe not. That's kind of a very complex interaction, whether I should be able to do that. Because the monk can give somebody an extra move, but... So then if it gets an extra move now, it can move, whereas otherwise it would normally not be able to do that. I think that's actually fair, because that's such a nuanced interaction that it actually makes sense. So the monk gives move to teleporter. But no, that doesn't make sense, because I would get a move anyway. No, maybe it shouldn't work. It gives something an extra move, but it doesn't matter if it has an extra move, because I'm still going to get my move anyway, right? It doesn't make sense from my perspective. It would be like, oh, I'm giving up my regular move to move it, and it doesn't work because it's frozen. So we won't allow that then, I guess. So we can't move that or use its ability. It's just going to sit there, which by that logic, it should have attacked it. And then see, by that logic, I could have shield countered it to allow it to delay it a turn. See, like, would that create like some endless loop interaction, hypothetically? So let's say last turn they went here. Then I can't move it because it's frozen. Then I give it the shield counter for one turn so it can't be taken. Or it can, but it won't kill it. Then their lord move would be to freeze it again. So no, but you can't. You can't. That's the point. You can't freeze it again because you can't do it twice in a row. Because otherwise, like, oh, you go to capture it and the shield absorbs it. And then, oh, but it's still frozen, so I still can't move it. But it's not, because you can't. That's why that's important. And then, oh, I give it another shield counter, and then they try to take it again, and they freeze it again. But you can't do that because there's diminishing returns where you can only use it. You could still freeze it again later, but not on the same turn. On the next turn. So the Lord is going... This is very good, but I mean, I think the one flaw that I realized immediately, though, is the movement of the pieces. Not so much their movement pattern, even. Like, it could be like the king. It should be minimal. This is the point. It shouldn't be like crazy stuff. The crazy stuff is meant to be the abilities. So the movement is as simple as possible. Either the lords move like pawns or they move like a king, right? One of the two is limiting. But the problem with it is that there's such an incentive not to move these pieces. Like, most of them, like, why would you move the cauldron guy? Because he can just poison stuff all day long. Or why would you move anything? So the only piece that you want to move is the mind controller, the archer, and the teleporter. There's no reason to move any of the other ones, and there should be some sort of incentive to do that. But then again, kind of the point of this is to have that long range battle, because again, the monk can affect pieces anywhere. It doesn't matter where they are. You can give it an extra piece. That's it. Maybe there should be some limit to that, like it can only be within 3 squares, like the archer effect. So maybe I'll make that the rule. Like, see, we're sort of play testing it too as I'm doing it. So it affects something within 3 squares to be able to give it an extra move. So the movement would justify that. Like the archer, same thing, 3 squares. The flagger, same thing, 3 squares. The the freeze would be kind of dumb, because, but maybe that is what you should have to do. You should have to bring them closer to be able to affect it. So this is obviously 1 square just because it has to capture it. This could be 3 squares to give an extra move to something. This could be 3 squares to block out a square. This could be 3 squares to freeze, even though that's stupid because I want something like that to be affecting the game from the beginning, because otherwise what's the point? So I'm not so sure about that, but it would give it an incentive to move at least. This could give a shield counter, but only to something within 3 squares. This could attack, obviously we've already established, within 3 squares. The poison also you could apply only to something within 3 squares, I guess. And the teleporter can do whatever it wants, but like it can't just teleport only 3 squares. It can just go anywhere. It's kind of the point of the piece, but or maybe not. Maybe that should just be enough. It can teleport 3 squares from where it is if it wants to, kind of moving the same way as the archer is moving. That might simplify it in a way that's actually valuable. And so the point is that now, what would you be doing with the Lord moves at the beginning? And the answer is you wouldn't even have a way to use them because nothing is close enough to make that make sense. So everybody would just use the monk thing then at the beginning. That's kind of complicated because whether you want to incentivize the movement of the pieces or whether you want to just let them rely on the use of their abilities. So if you could put everything within the 3 move range, right? Again, what would be the first Lord move? And the answer is you can't use that. You could use that, but it'd be on your own territory. Same thing with the archer. You can't freeze anything. You could shield, but again, it'll run out before it's meaningful. Same thing with the cauldron. So your only incentivized move is either the teleporter or the ability, at least. Either you teleport 3 squares or you maybe it should be like that. Not so much 3 squares, but like 3 squares on your territory. Well, like if he goes, like it should be territorial. So like if you move the thing, you teleport here. No, like then you move there, then it's on your territory. So it's not so much 3 squares, but it's any of your 4 squares, like on your side of the board. Hey Wormius, how's it going? So now I'm changing this like 100 times even as I'm doing it because there's so many potential problems with it. Okay, so the point is that now we go ahead and if you decide to say, okay, so you can freeze anything on your side of the board or within 3, well, that's kind of a contradiction though. Like, so if it's on their side of the board, okay, you should be able to freeze it. But if it's not, then you have to be within 3 squares of it, which you are anyway, but that seems too limited then. Like, oh, you know, if I teleported here and then moved here, let's say, then I can freeze it because it's on their side of the board. That would have to be to make it useful. Otherwise, it's just not going to be good enough. Because then how far would I have to go? I'd have to go all the way right within, and maybe it should be a direct line, or it could be 3 squares in some convoluted way like the knight, but I think it would just be more direct. So 3 squares like that. Okay, let me try to restart then. This is very difficult to figure out. Yeah, there's not enough of an incentive to move the pieces otherwise. So now you say, okay, everything can only affect itself within 3 squares. So let's say we give the monk can affect 1, 2, 3, like, so let's say the monk can affect that. So now we can move it twice, right? Once for our normal move phase and once for our ability to give the ability, right? Then let's say, okay, the teleporter, they want to be all aggressive. They can move it 3 squares, 1, 2, 3. Right, everything is going to be built around the rule of 3, I guess. So again, the freeze is completely useless for now. No, maybe I'd make an exception because yeah, some of these abilities feel like they just won't be useful then. So like this should be, instead of the rule of 3, like 3 direct line, it should be 3 rows. So like you move it here. Well, first of all, you wouldn't do that first, but let's say it was there, then you could do it. Maybe that should be the rule. 1, 2, 3. So if it's within 3 rows for the king, or not for the king, for the freezer or for the flagger. Not so much for some of the other ones though. This one doesn't matter because it's got to be next to it. Good, I just managed something really difficult with my brother for a thing he needed. Nice. How's that game going? Is it, well, I guess it was already on Steam, but are you gonna, like, keep it free forever? The mind controller would only affect the square next to it. Oh, it's a demo, right? I forgot. So the mind controller would hit, right, it would have to be next to it. This would hit within 3 squares directly. That seems fair enough, right? Like it should have to at least be that close. This should be able to hit by the rule of the freezer, which is very close to finishing. Nice. So this would be, again, if I was as good at developing stuff, I could make this actually work properly. But even using somebody else's game, I still can't. You know, I'm basically miming it out because these mechanics don't really work natively. It's way too complex for that. So this could be like within 3 full rows. So like you can not only block a square here, but you could block anything within these. Well, how does that work though? Within 3 rows and within 3, maybe it should be like a 3x3 or. Yeah, this program is just like you can mess around with it, but it's still. It has some interesting mechanics, but you can't do like kind of anything you want. How did I write that one anyway? The flagger or the mapper. Why doesn't it let you see it here? Okay, so the point is, this would be like a 3. If I said, okay, it can go 3 and 3 in each direction, or it can go for 3 rows. It can go just anywhere it wants within 3 rows, right? Within the effect. So in the starting position, it would seem like, okay, it's only affecting your side. It lets you script it to a degree, but I don't think I can do it to this extent. Like, certain mechanics it'll show you, like, if I go to the menu, I can show you, like, you make a piece, and then you can script the movement pattern like this. You can script certain rules here, but it's still kind of limited. Like, you know, nearby pieces can't be captured, whatever, stuff like this. When it's captured, the attacker is also captured, which that is actually one of my mechanics, but it's only meant to work some of the time with the way that I'm doing it. If I play it, it doesn't actually work. I have to go and edit it. How did I do it? Or maybe I play it and then I choose to edit it from within here. But yeah, it has music, but it only works like very rarely. Like, let you write. I don't really know if it would do that. I'm not experienced with stuff like that, so you would think it should, though. Oh yeah, you gotta resign and then edit the board. Okay, so now let's say, okay, within 3 rows you can do whatever you want. So if my king was here, let's say, or whoops, I'm not moving it. Okay, you go here, now I can freeze the pawn here, right? Anything within the 3 rows. Like that. That seems fair, because otherwise those abilities don't seem very good. So again, the mind controller is going to affect what's next to it. This is going to affect within 3. This should be within 3 spaces, because that's more of a powerful ability. Then this could be within 3 rows, period, because again, that ability is just blocking a square out. And then this would be the same thing, freeze within 3. And then this would be like within only 3 when it's like a buff the way. So 1, 2, 3, it could be like that, or whatever. There could be some convoluted way that you get to it, some other way. But the archer is also 3. That's the one that made the most sense from the beginning. And then this one, you can poison something within 3. And then this one, you can teleport 3. So the 2 exceptions would be the freeze and the flagger. That those abilities don't seem strong enough. So what you're gonna do, or the mapper, I keep calling it the flagger. You go ahead and you can block out a square right within 3 rows anywhere. So if it was here, so I could block out like well, assuming the pawn's not there, I could block out like this square. So to be able to affect the back rank, I'd have to be there, which you're not really going to want to do that. Same thing with this. I can freeze anything up to a certain point there. So at the beginning of the game, though, those abilities are going to be completely useless because you're too far away to affect anything. So like, let's say we play it out and we say, okay, this is my Lord ability, and then the move I make would be just unleash a piece like here. And then for their move, let's say they want to freeze this. They can't freeze it until I go into their territory now, or until, let's say, they want to do that. So the monk allows an extra move. So like the monk allows the king to move. Should it be on? No, I guess that makes sense. So you do this, and then the monk allows you to move again. And then now you can freeze that, for example, 1, 2, 3. I guess that makes some amount of sense. And then it would be so intuitive if everything did work like that organically, like, you know, if I could get it to function that way, but it would be way too complicated. So now white's Lord move could be, I'm not going to actually play out a full game because this is going to take me a whole lifetime, but I keep kind of reiterating on the rules as I go. So the main point is they're meant to feel even to each other, but that's going to be very debatable, like based on all their abilities. So now is here, let's say we try to bring the archer up, but before I do that, I will, see now you could teleport somewhere within 3 squares, but it doesn't matter because you don't want to go there and just get captured anyway. And that doesn't count as a capture. It's just meant like, so if I went here, this can't capture me. It can just teleport those 3 squares. But yeah, what would be the incentive to move something here? That's my whole question. Like I want to move the archer up, let's say. Like let's say we give the extra move to be able to do that. The monk is going to be overused here. But no, see, this isn't even, I'm not doing it correctly. Because then the incentive with the monk is, okay, it has to be within 3 squares of what it's giving an extra move to, which it maybe would have worked for that. So, okay, let me say, we'll do the teleporter, and then we'll do the pawn. Then we'll do, the monk gives the extra move to that, so that actually does make sense. Then we'll go and we'll do something maybe similar. We'll give the extra move to the pawn, move the thing here. Then we will go ahead and do. So now again, 1, 2, 3. We should already be able to do it then, or we can freeze it. So like, let's say we freeze this, which there's not a great way to represent this, even with the way it's going. I thought you could use maybe that, but. Piece here instantly move to another location. There should be some technique here you can just mark it with something just so you know it's affected and have like a timer. So we could freeze this for the move, but then we can't target it anyway, so it doesn't matter. It'd be pointless. Again, the 1, 2, 3 phasic thing would be you can affect your row and the 3 in front of you. So your row and the 3 in front of you, that would apply to, again, the flagger. And I keep calling it that. That should just be the name. And the freezer to make it feel more useful. And then, so what could black do here? Like just, you could give a piece an extra move. So we could move this 1. See, now that's dangerous because now the Lord ability of this could almost hit it, right? If we move that once. We gave it just an extra move and then moved it twice. But even that, would I have said that about this? Like the monk, can you give it to the same one twice in a row? I guess I didn't think of putting a restriction on that. But again, it can't use its ability there. Obviously, because the ability you're using that turn is only the monk's ability to be able to give an extra move. So now, from there, you have the ability to... So we didn't freeze it, but we're kind of encroaching up upon it. Then the archer... See, you could give the archer an extra move, but then you wouldn't be able to use the Lord ability to be able to attack that. So you can do this, put this within striking distance, but now you could also freeze that. 1, 2, 3, right? So let's see. You move the archer, but before I move the archer, let's make the actual... do the actual Lord ability. So now I can freeze the freezer with mine, since he's come this far. So I'll freeze his, then I'll move this. So now we're setting up to like, oh, now next turn I can kill it. But now what could we do to affect it here as the black? We can't move the frozen guy or use its ability, but what we could do is we could put a shield counter on it. No, but I can't because see, I'm too far away. This guy can put the shield counter to absorb the next hit it's going to take. But the problem is that, and I'd have to give up my own pawn too because the archer is going to destroy everything within those three, not just his pieces, right? So I would destroy the pawn as well. So now, see, this is where it gets a little elaborate, but see, this is a misplay by black then to allow this. They should have had the ability to move this closer because 1, 2, 3, no matter how you slice it, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, you can't get there. You can't do it diagonally, otherwise that would maybe create a cheese, right? 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Right, there's no simple 3 path you can get to with that, so I won't allow it to affect it. You could arguably say like it should just be straight directions, but that maybe doesn't make sense. Like the monk giving an extra movement 1, 2, 3 like that, right, doesn't work. So this thing is probably going to die no matter what. And so not enough of these things are out there. If I did this, could I maybe block a square that's like, it wouldn't really stop the archer though. I don't think it should work. Like you do this and then, no, but it doesn't even make sense because by moving that, you're not using the ability anyway. So black is just in a bit of a bind where you could, so white's going to give up their pawn to destroy this with the Lord ability, pretty much guaranteed. And because this is already frozen, it can't really retaliate. So there's nothing you can do with that. So we'll just randomly do that as the Lord ability, and then we'll just randomly do something else as the movement. We'll move this. Then the archer is going to blow this out. Is going to blow up your own pawn and this, right? So that's a successful kill on a Lord, maybe the first Lord kill we've seen. Because again, that can attack 3 in one direction. I really wish as you hovered over, it would just tell you the rule set that you've done for it. You have to kind of go manually and do that. Like how card games do that. You'll just hover over and it'll tell you everything. Or I mean, it's literally written on the card too, but it like zooms in these digital card games. So that was the archer's ability. So now we still get to make a move with something other than the archer. So let's say we bring this out. And it's going to be able to freeze, for example, that now. So now it's a black's move. And it would allow you to use an ability, which again, there's nothing really too valuable to use yet. This at least incentivized the movement a lot in terms of, okay, now I'm going to... Now, think about how long this would take me to actually play out a full game. Like, let me actually try to do it. Just, okay, we'll try to bring this guy out to give a shield. So we can't do that yet. 1, 2, 3. We do the shield, or no, we just do the movement, but what about the ability? So I guess we could do it this way. 1, 2, 3. So you give him an extra move that turn. Now, 1, 2, 3. So now you would give... I'm going to be white, so now I can freeze this guy and then move this here. So we're setting... Whoops. Move this here. So we're setting out to finish that off the same way. So black is just getting absolutely destroyed because that's the same problem you just made, is that you're allowing this combo to happen where it's a different target, so it's not like we're freezing the same thing over and over. This is within the same line, and so now you should have had that guy to protect it. So maybe we should say, okay, we could move. There's really nothing you can do, though. See, we're getting in these spots where we're just sort of stuck. So these are just bad moves by black. So we've frozen this, and we've set this up to attack it next turn. So now black can't do anything right? You've already lost your ability to freeze. The ability to protect is being negated here. So you're just not going to be able to do anything. Maybe I should... Now, as far as the movement of 3, should I be able to move in other ways or only straight directions? 1, 2, 3 should be still the rule to follow. But then, of course, he'd just be able to capture me here as well. I could maybe block it, but it wouldn't actually work because he'll take everything in those 3 squares. So again, this teleporter's just been sitting there again. It can move 3 increments, but whether it should move in those angles, I didn't really lay out. Like at a... I can't tell, like, if you, as long as you don't do it diagonally, it shouldn't be a problem, right? That would kind of break the game, because then you're going too far unnaturally. If it could go, like, diagonal and then 2. So you could go 1 and then 2 in any direction, too. So what would black do here? Now that you know that's going to die, it's frozen, and this is attacking 3 squares. So there's nothing you can do. You could poison it, which would allow it to destroy everything around it, but only next to it, 1 square, and only behind it, so that it's not able to be too overpowered with, like, letting it destroy what's in front of it. So it would destroy its own pieces, everything around there. So what movement would black make with its special ability? This is the problem that you run into, where sometimes it's just not going to be useful. I'll do the poison counter on there just for the heck of it. Oh no, that does still work. That does still work, because the poison ability, I wish I could show it, the rules that I've written out, but it doesn't let you look at it here, I guess. Because the poisonous thing, rogue, right, would work here. Why doesn't it let me see it? Oh no, it does here. Put a poison counter on your piece. It lasts 3 turns, after which the piece dies. If it's captured within those 3 turns, that piece that captures it dies. If not, then it explodes, destroying itself and everything within 1 square horizontal and behind. So that still does give you some restitution from the Lord ability, because now that's poisoned. Now I have to make a move with something, whatever, just like... What should I be trying to even advance here? Like, I'll advance my own archer. And then now we know this is going to die, but in the process of killing it, we're going to actually die ourselves, because even despite being an archer, it still doesn't matter, right? I don't think I distinguished that. You could say maybe it should be immune, but that seems like at least a fair way to deal with that situation, that you get something in return. The piece that captures it dies, whether it's capturing it by its Lord ability or just manually, right? That should still absolutely work. And now I'd have to think twice and think, okay, maybe I want to save the archer, so I'll wait, or I'll... That seems like a good use of that. So they move there. Now I could choose whether to take it or not. Right, so he was frozen that turn, so he couldn't do anything. So that poses a dilemma that even while being poisoned, or even while being an archer and hitting it from a range, there's nothing that really lays out the fact that whether it's captured by, because most of the abilities aren't capturing stuff anyway, right? This is like mind controlling it, which kind of counts as a capture. So yeah, that should still count. So fine, I'll do it where this dies in order to capture. This dies in order to capture that, even though, because it's poisoned. Oh, maybe it shouldn't work on your own pieces then with the poison, because that's kind of dumb. That would make it too shitty. Right, like, because you're always going to have that be a problem. So no, it'll only kill your opponent's pieces, but it only kills them next to and behind to make it more balanced. Otherwise, you could just ride it into there and then just kill everything, in front of you. The way that, like, in Atomic Chess is kind of bullshit. The way the game ends in, like, 3 turns sometimes, just because maybe I'm bad, but also that mechanic is a bit too strong. So the archer gives itself up using its ability to capture that and blow itself up with the poison somehow. However you want to rationalize long-range poison effect like that. So you do that. Now we get to move a piece. Like, let's say 1, 2, 3, we could actually freeze that. So yeah, let's do a simple move like this. We'll freeze that because it's within 1, 2, 3, and then we'll move this 1. We'll move the guy 1 square. What? Wait, why is it doing that? something's like bugged out. Okay, we remove a piece, remove that. No, remove this. Now my goal is to move a piece, so just move this here. Why is it actually bugging out? I think I actually broke it. This is unusual behavior. This has nothing to do with what I'm trying to do. So we want to move this here, and then, right, so this is frozen. This freezes this. And you could say, oh, that's diagonal, but really it's just meant to be a straight within these 3 boxes you can do, or even behind. Well, actually, yeah, that kind of, well, then if you're in a central position, it makes it very valuable, but typically what's behind you is going to be your own pieces anyway. We move there, threatening to take it next turn, but it would still be a trade because it's covered. But regardless, we're doing that, and so we're allowing it to sort of be threatened. So it's frozen and it's being threatened. So now I can just leave it there, and now they make their move and they can't take it. Now we could give somebody an extra move with the monk, which seems to be the only valuable thing to do at this stage, where you give the pawn an extra move and just move it twice, or this guy's ability seems a little bit underwhelming, the blocking a square out, because it's sort of one-sided. Like, so I could block this square out the next turn, but so we'll just give this guy an extra move and let him move twice just to get something going. Then white is going to potentially, if I move here, I'm putting myself in line of the archer that could just kill me. If I put it here, I'll be safe for a turn. So the king is moving like crazy. Or it's not the king, I'm just saying that for some reason. Every piece is meant to be equal. So you could move this. This guy is the one who's going to be giving the shield. But before I do that, let me do the ability. 1, 2, 3. So we'll just double move him with the monk. And then, see, there's a strong incentive, maybe too strong, to just not move certain pieces. But then again, that's why I put it on the edge of the board, kind of, so you would have to move it now to affect these. So that gives you some reason to do it. Which you can do it to itself, too. It can give itself an extra move. No, but that doesn't make sense. Because the whole point is whenever you use an ability, you're not meant to move that same piece. So it can't give it to itself then. So you move that twice. But see, now that's dumb, because now you're giving this up for free, but I'll let it count anyway, since black is doing so bad. So now I get to do a lord move, and then I get to take a piece, or move a piece. So the lord ability would be, once again, kind of pointless, because none of these are actually very good. So I'll give the extra move to this from the monk. 1, 2, 3, still valid. And then we will capture this for free, which is just a dumb move by white to allow that. And then we'll go as white. So the lord move is going to be, that we could maybe freeze this and set it up for a take. But the take wouldn't be very good. I haven't used the shield mechanic really yet, but let's see. This is going to be able to block a square, which may or may not even be that good. That might be one of the worst mechanics, actually. I could freeze it, but I can't really attack it is the problem. So again, I can freeze anything up to here. So I'll freeze that, and then I'll threaten it, but then you could still easily cover it. But let's just do it. So we freeze that. We move this here. Then black can use its lord, or am I sometimes freezing stuff too many times in a row? Because no, I think I just broke my rule, right? Because it's meant to be not just like, oh, the next turn, but it means you can't freeze the same target twice in a row, period. You can freeze it 3 times total in the course of a game, the same target, but what we just froze was, we had frozen that, right? Then we just left it. So that should count as like, okay, I have to freeze a different target. I just can't keep spam freezing the same thing. So this should be taken. And so again, white's ability could be It's kind of hard to decide because most of this isn't good. A lot of these abilities take a while to do it. So we'll just give this guy an extra move and just get him out there just to give some mobility. And then we will do as black. So again, the point is I can use the freeze, but I can't freeze the same thing twice in a row, regardless what, not twice in a row, like 2 moves back to back. Like I freeze it, then I freeze it again. It should even be that I have to freeze something. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you should be able to actually though. Because like I freeze it, then I just do a different ability the next turn, then I freeze it again. So you are technically spacing it out with a turn. That's the main intent. So you just can't freeze it back-to-back moves. So you give it a turn to cool off, and then you freeze it again. And you're limited to only do that 3 times the whole game of the same piece. Then you'd have to wait another move. I guess you should arguably be able to do that. So we move that there. Now black gets to use its ability, which is going to be... Like, let's just do this as an example. Right, we remove the tile here. So now this square is being blocked off by this, right, within the 3 range. Arguably, this guy should have a larger range of affecting stuff because that ability just doesn't seem that good. So now I could attack this and then they can't escape. But it doesn't matter because I don't have a good way to attack it anyway. We'll do that and then we'll just move, like, this guy here. I'm just making bad moves just to kind of demonstrate what this is going to be like, but... I haven't decided fully on even the rule set because as I play it, I kind of realize certain things are posing problems. I'm sort of playtesting it too. So you move that, you move that. Now, we could freeze this. So let's see, we do... we freeze the thing and then we attack it, just hypothetically. Right, just... So that's frozen. This is attacking, and that was the move. So now as black, we can at least cover it. So now if I move the archer here, I could potentially attack that, but that could potentially freeze it too. So let's try it though, actually. So we'll move... No, wait. Well, what ability do we want to use? You could box it in too, because now this has a 1 count on it, but... Meaning in 2 turns it'll expire, but then I could do it again too. Somewhere else. But I don't really want to. Let's freeze this then. It feels like the freeze is maybe going to have too much impact. Or maybe you could say you only have one thing freeze at a time, but that's not really true. So we'll freeze this. So now this is still frozen from the last turn. This will freeze. And then we'll attack it. So now we're kind of forking them in a way that even if they cover one, they can't cover both. No, but I can't move that when I can't move that. I'll move this. So we freeze it and then we move that there. And then we, as black... Wait, why couldn't I just... Wait, I forget what I just did. I'm supposed to be moving as black, so... I froze this, and then I move this here. Now, as black, I get to decide what to do. So I was saying, like, I wanted to move this here and attack the king, the anchor, which is not the king. I don't know why I keep saying that. Just the cross imagery or something. And it kind of works pretty well as the king in that one C set, where it's like an octopus with the anchor on its head. That kind of looks like the cross. So now here we have an ability to, again, do an ability as black, and then do a movement as black. So what would I do if I was black here? I could block out another square. I guess none of these abilities are really making sense right now. Why can't I do it? Remove... Oh, I'm doing remove piece. I should be remove tile. So we could do... What would be something like I don't want him to go somewhere? Fine, we'll do that. So like this has already aged like for one turn now. We have to keep track of that. But we block that tile and then I move the archer here. Maybe I should have blocked the back so he can't escape, but then he could still sidestep it. So now we move the archer there, so we're setting up to attack there. So now I'm letting him, no, but see, I wouldn't have done that then. We block the square here, and then I would logically just cover this with that. So now I could capture that, but at least it's a trade. So now as white, I would decide to, I can't move there, I can't move there. This has like maybe another turn on it. So yeah, this ability seems garbage. The ability to block out a square. At least you should be able to do it more freely. Like you should be able to do it on your opponent's side, even when you're back. That's how I imagine some of them. Like they can affect any part of the board anytime, but maybe that's too strong. But I thought that with the freeze and the flagger, that could maybe make sense. So now you would decide to, as white, what could I do? I could trade that, but I don't. Now it's less of an incentive. So I could give a shield counter to somebody. Let's give the shield counter to the king. And then we could move the king. But that doesn't make sense either. But let's just do it anyway. So now they could capture, but it would be absorbed. Then they could capture again. But then I'm acting like you could take back, but in that case you can't because it's the archer. So let's not do that. Let's still give him the shield counter. But then I will... Let's just move this guy up. And that's also another debate. Should you be able to have double buffs on the same thing? So like I'll give it the poison counter. I guess you should be able to do that as like a cool combo mechanic. So like next turn I could give it the poison counter, so it'll have the shield counter and the poison counter. The shield counter is about to expire, but the poison counter has one more turn. So you'd be both immune to a hit, but then even if you are killed, it'll blow up around it, and also it'll also kill your capturer, whoever takes you, including the archer. So we move this here, we give this the shield counter. See, there's all these kind of ongoing things that you'd have to keep track of. Let's assume that this has been 3 turns now after their move. So we would put that back. This one would have like 2 more turns on it. And then black's use of abilities here has not been very good, but... So the teleporter is obviously free to move, and so now you have... I would want to move this forward and try to take that, but of course at the same time you're going to have the king be a problem, or again I can't stop calling it that, where it could freeze that, but then you've got other things going on too, so maybe you wouldn't. So before I do that, let me use an ability, which again, the only ability that I'm seeing able to use on an active level is this guy. So like I just keep spamming that because there's no other good ability for black right now that I can use. These things are too far away to impact the game. And I don't want to move them. I want to move the archer. So I'll block out yet another square. Remove a tile, maybe to stop this guy from escaping. Just block that tile out, I guess. And then the archer can move, and we're attacking this. Now, white has a chance to move, where I would be able to... I could freeze something, so I'll freeze the archer to save myself, or I could just move to save myself. Let me think. And in fact, he already has the shield counter lasting up until next turn. So whatever I do this turn, I'd be immune 1 time. So let's do this. Like, well, no, but I can't. I keep thinking I'll freeze the archer, and then I'll freeze the archer for the ability, but I can't target it with anything. Though that's just to negate this. I could either freeze it or I could just move it. But whatever. Okay, we'll freeze it, and then I'll just do the capture, I guess, setting up for a trade. But see, couldn't this aspect be cheese? Like I could have frozen this Yeah, let me take that back then. I won't freeze the archer. So like, let's say I freeze the pawn. Right, freeze this pawn, then I'll capture here. Now, because that pawn is frozen, you can't kill that. So you froze that. You do that. Now it's black's turn. They have the special ability. They could take that, but that's just a hypothetical situation. It's kind of like... So the freeze might be a little bit too strong, right? Because it's impacting... No, wait. I couldn't have done that. Never mind. That is the rule of 3 that's actually relevant. Because 1, 2... No, is it? 1, 2, 3. No, I could do it. So we freeze that. Now you could take the king, but again, that's only because of this very specific circumstance. Normally, it's not like that's the price you would pay. You would do that as a special ability. You take out the king. This is still frozen, so that obviously it's not like when it dies, the ability is gone. But so that pawn is still frozen. So now you can move a piece as black, other than the archer. So I could just move this here, I guess. Whoops. Okay, move this here. Sometimes it bugs out a little bit. But no, some of these things are very, very hard to keep track of because... Okay, remove piece. We kill that with the archer, and then we'll move it here. Or no, I can't do that. I move this here. And then this thing should also be gone because we already captured it. And again, that was frozen. So now as white, we could obviously decide to save our piece here. Or maybe I could leave it and I could give it a shield counter. The way that... Oh, but see, yeah, never mind. I had planned that better than I realized. Because by having given it... Would that have still been ongoing? So maybe that would have survived. It's the way... This is why I even had this to try to keep track. But this would have still been alive then. Because you would have taken away the shield counter. And so it would still be alive. So making that move would have been pointless. Because, again, for the 2 moves, it would have still had that. So the things that work like that are... Like, which ones last for multiple turns? The freezer lasts for only the next turn. Right, the mapper lasts for 3 turns. The mind controller would last forever. It would basically capture the piece, but actually just take it over. But then it doesn't get to keep its ability. Like, does that mean it should consume itself, or does that mean it should? Actually, maybe it shouldn't, because then it's too weak, because it has to get right next to them. So it would get next to it, it would capture it, but control it, but it would stay around and still be able to do that with other things later, maybe. Or maybe it should just give itself up. But then it not only captures their piece effectively, but it takes it over. But it doesn't translate that ability. Like, it can't now, as that piece also takes something else over. That would be too much. The monk doesn't last for an extra turn, so what does? The protector will last for 2 turns, the shield effect. The rogue will last for 2 turns. So those are the 2 that get a little confusing with that. So this guy lasts 3 turns, the other 2 last 2 turns. So I would have said, okay, so he has the shield counter, so that negated the thing. And it's pointless to even try to remove it then, because again, you know it's going to be gone anyway. So that would have been a waste unless you're attacking it twice. So he would have absorbed that, let's say. Then we would have still done this. Right, from the freeze. And then this move, you would have, again, you would have tanked that. And you would have moved that. And then now it's white's move. And so now you can... I could freeze the archer again. And then I could just save my guy here because now the pawn is unfrozen. Yeah, the freeze honestly just seems way too good compared to some of this. And the flagger guy seems way too bad. So we'd move that back, let's say. Maybe this should be able to do it in ways other than just horizontal, though, too. Like, I hadn't thought about that till now. The archer should maybe be able to do that. I was thinking 3 horizontal and 3 vertical, but why not 3 diagonal as well? For that piece, it should maybe be an exception. But it's still frozen this turn, so now black gets to, let's say, poison a piece. Or I don't know what good that would do, though. And I'm not really keeping track of these counters super well either. It'd be so good if you could get all this stuff to work. But yeah, I like the fact that the monk is really hard to use, too. Like it's so good that it gives stuff an extra move, but which again cannot be used to capture. But then what if it could, like, the first move is used to capture, but then the second move is used to get away? Maybe just whenever you do that, that piece is just not allowed to capture at all that turn if you use that on there. So we could give it to this and we can make 2 moves. But what good would it do? Or we could do it on 2 separate things, like we do it on the pawn and then we do it on the pawn and then we can also move something else. Just like there for whatever reason, and then we're leaving this still as a sitting duck though, so I shouldn't have done that. So we'll move, or no, didn't we already do this though, where we froze? I froze the archer, and then, or was that last? I'm losing track too. I should have written it out, but let's assume, okay, the shield counter's gone, and then this guy, we move back, so it would be black's turn now, though. Wait, why am I acting like it's white's turn again? Just because black's options are so shitty. Like, they keep using the stupid piece blocking, square blocking ability, which isn't having too much impact. So after 3 turns, that would expire, which I'm not really keeping track of these things super well. So this is still frozen, and then... So I would have frozen that, and I would have done this. So now... If I move this here, they could take, I could take, they could take. Let me just try to get this to a conclusion. But again, the king feels like it's, or the fucking anchor seems like it's doing too much. But it's black's move. So now let's say nothing really is in danger of being capped. Let's poison this and then. So, or no, I can't do it because it's too far away. Let's just poison the archer for the fuck of it, even though it doesn't seem like it's going to get taken anytime soon. So let's not even bother. Let's poison the pawn here. And then we'll move it. So like 1, no, but I can't even do it. 1, 2, 3, damn it. So we'll do another one of these as just remove the tile. Right, that is not the greatest thing, but we'll put it there, and then we'll move this closer, I guess. And so now it's white's move. This is unfrozen, so we got to worry about getting away from this. This doesn't have the shield counter thing anymore. So now you get to... see certain pieces you just feel incentivized not to move, though. Like, this is so good that it gives you an extra move. Whether it should be allowed to capture or not, I'm not sure, but it's too far away even to impact all this. So I could give this an extra move, but maybe it should, because it's such a hassle to even do that. But it seems what would be broken is like, oh, I could capture something and then run away from it too in the same turn, which that maybe shouldn't be allowed. So the ability I would use here is I could now maybe freeze this. So freeze this and then move this here. And then it's still covered though. But now we're going to set up to get killed by the archer. Right now the archer can just kill you straight up. And then... what else can you move? You can maybe move the... Let's make some other different move here. Just move the monk. And then, yeah, that is so annoying to kind of keep that within range that it almost should be allowed to do that. And I'll demonstrate that. Like, okay, in this case, it doesn't even really work, but I could give it an extra move it, and then capture it. But then you could, of course, still capture back. Or I guess we haven't demonstrated. No, but it would move like a king as well. So it's not like, oh, the archer ability has to do that. But it should be able to do within those three, even within the diagonal. I was mostly thinking about it just as a vertical, horizontal attack pattern, but you could absolutely, but not at an angle. That like not like a horse. That shouldn't be allowed. You know, if you could do it within the diagonal, which I won't allow that. So now what's happening is that this would be unfrozen. This would be unfrozen now. I could just capture that for free. So I'm not saying I'm playing this very well. So like I could give the archer the poisoner. I thought I already did that. So I'd give this an extra move with the monk, I guess, and then I would do this, capture that. And then now it's going to be white's move. This still has the poison counter, I guess, that would destroy that. But it doesn't even need it. Or yeah, I wonder what the hierarchy then would be. This would die before the pawn even has to capture back. It would just destroy itself there. So the ability here is going to be just give this thing an extra move and then capture this, and it would blow up so you don't even have to take it with the pawn. And then it seems worse than what it would be, but it's very convoluted either way. I would have to actually keep track of it like this. So now we have the core point is it's meant to be evenly matched, where you have 8 lords with special abilities that all are sort of static and they feel like equal, so there's no piece is stronger than another. And again, some of the win conditions could be obviously whether you promote and you get a 9th lord, you auto win, or whether you promote at all, or whether you obviously destroy all of their lords. Any of those 3 could potentially work. Just to say promoting at all is maybe not the best one, but certainly if you get a 9th lord at any point, that should count. So now it's white's move, and you get to give a piece an extra move, so we could do like, or no, let's not even do that, just so we can move that. So we'll poison a pawn here. Just because, even though it's not really doing anything, but you got to think ahead, then we can move this. Then black can just maybe but if you give it an extra move, then you can't move the monk itself, which I kind of want to do. So let's poison this pawn here, I guess, and then do this again. A lot of these things are hard to keep track of. So this is poison, this is poison. Then 1, 2, 3. So this guy can be given an extra move. To give him an extra move, those 2 are long expired too. From the removal of those squares. I feel like most of the abilities are balanced, but some of them seem a little weak. Like, well, the freeze seems a little bit too strong, especially with the range of it. That should maybe be reduced to the 3 square rule, not like just the 3 row. So like it should have to be within directly. So like if that guy's here, he can freeze something there. Maybe it can't go through pieces either. Like those would be some of the limits. So my anchor is here, the archer is here. The archer should be able to shoot over it, especially its own piece, but maybe just even in general. But this shouldn't be able to freeze through that. And it also shouldn't be able to be like, oh, 3 rows. That makes sense for the other guy, for the flag guy, who's taking up territory, but that seemed kind of bullshit. Like, oh, I can freeze this now, I can freeze that now. That's too much. So it should be within 3 and not able to jump over their pieces and not be able to go 3 rows, just like 3 squares, 3 squares, maybe diagonal. I'm kind of debating the diagonals because that seems sometimes bullshit, but at least it's within 3, right? However you get there. that should maybe be a limit that you put. So what is this move even supposed to be? I don't even know. We would add this square back. I'll move just the piece here. Or no, I was even saying that I was trying to use the ability, though. Or no, I would give this guy like an extra move then, I guess. Right, so you gave him that, and then there's too many like what ifs. Like, should that extra move be allowed to make it capture something? And the answer is yes, it should, because the monk is so hard to get in there, and you know it has to be so close. So maybe most of these should work diagonally as well. 3 squares, any way you go about it, I guess. So now it's their move. They get to, this pawn is still poisoned. So they could, see now, this could give this an extra move and just capture it. Right, that could totally happen if you were allowing that to be the rule set. This gives the pawn extra move, so then it goes and it goes and it captures. I don't know whether that should be allowable or not. It feels like it should be an extra movement, but not an actual capture, but I'll allow it for now. And then we go. So you capture there. Now, of course, I can capture back, but you just took out a lord for it. Now, let me give this pawn an extra move, or it wouldn't really matter, though, because I'm just going to recapture that anyway. So, like, let me give him a move, and then we'll take this, and then he gets the extra move. Not that, though. Then black is going to... So this is the mind controllers that are left. So let's give... The poison thing isn't really having a ton of impact here either. So let's just give this an extra move, move this guy. Then we'll give this guy an extra move him twice. Then we'll give him an extra move him twice, why not? Or maybe there should be some limit that you can't use it on the same piece, but I don't see with the monk why that's really as much of an issue. You move it twice, we're getting some major diminishing returns, move it twice. But see, now that actually wouldn't happen. Move it twice, but then but you wouldn't use its ability. That would still count as an ability. Or maybe that's the one that would be the exception, because you're counting it as a capture. So, like, since that piece is so hard to use, so normally you would say you can't use their ability, but his ability is treated more like a passive where, take over piece instead of capturing attacks like a pawn. So maybe that, because yeah, if you were to say, oh, you can use it at the beginning of a turn, right? But how would you be able to do that? Because whatever you would be capturing would capture you first. So you're using that. That seems kind of like a cheese, though, too, especially when you're giving it an extra move. But so you are kind of using 2 abilities there. So then we'd like take that pawn over. And so now that would become a black pawn. Effectively. And then... Wait, why did that shrink down as far as adding? Just because those are the ones that are left, but whatever. So now that kind of took that piece over. Now it's their turn, so now they could do kind of the same thing and retake it back, make it a white pawn, and then this is getting kind of complicated with the mind controller actually. Because like now logically you could say if that doesn't count as a lord ability, because then it seems too weak if it's not, but maybe it's so strong that it should count. So like I could give this guy an extra move, then I could do it. No, it should count still, but I don't know how you would exactly do it then. You could give him an extra turn, then you could turn that back to white, and then you could still make a move too. Right, because this counts as the lord ability. This counts as just a basic... No, that would still count. Just by like... So you could do this in an endless loop. Give him an extra move. Do it. And then... You could still capture. But that you shouldn't be allowed to do it like that. I'm trying to come up with the most cheese way to play. So like, if it counts as a Lord ability, right? So like, let's say they're attacking me with this, or I'm there. It would be so hard to actually use this effect because I don't know. You certainly shouldn't be able to use that with the other ability anyway. So it's not capturing. It would be just doing this. So like, it could do this. So it'll turn this into a white pawn. Right. So let me try to understand. Turn this into a white pawn. That's the Lord ability. Then we can move something, but we can't move that. And we also shouldn't be able to move immediately what we just mind controlled, right? That should be like a summoning sickness type of thing. And then we'll just move this here. That's not what I meant to do. And then as black, now could they not do the same thing? Maybe the same piece can't be charmed twice in a row. So since we just charmed it, they can't charm it. Now I could, with that, it's not allowed to even capture either, or maybe those two should be separate. Yeah, those two should just be separate. I'm treating it like a capture, but it shouldn't be. So I could just capture it, but I don't really want to. Or I could give that the extra move. And then... Or maybe there should be like some hierarchy. Like it could capture, but the capture has to be the last move, and the move ends after the capture. So like I could move it and then capture, and then my turn's over. Instead of like some hierarchy like that. So like, okay, you can move it and capture it, and then as white, you would have the ability to, okay, we'll give this an extra move. But, no, but that wouldn't even make sense then. You give this an extra move, then you just capture this. So as long as the capture is the final move that you make, when you make a capture, it should negate the, and in that case, it doesn't even matter because they're two separate pieces. But that way you can't like capture and then escape. So now black is gonna... some of these mechanics just don't flow super well. Like, they'll be good now at this stage in the game or something, but... So now we could make this one move twice. So we'll go, and then we capture. And then we'll make this one move twice. We could go, and then we could capture. And then we could make... this one move, and this one move. Or no, you can't do that, because you're using its own ability. And then I'll go... here, and then I have so few pieces left I can't even use the Lord ability anymore if I'm moving it. Then this guy will be, so you could just pass it then, the Lord phase. It's not like you have to use an ability, but I don't see why you wouldn't most of the game. So then this guy can give this an extra move, so you go here and then you capture for free, because that's seeming a little bit cheese, but also maybe it should be permissible. So now if we go here, then they make their move. So now the obvious move will be we'll control this and then do that and then do that. So maybe we'll I don't know what I would really do about it. This guy can't affect anything, so I'll just pass the Lord phase and then go back. And then now we'll go give this an extra move. And then this will go back for now. Now at this point it becomes very hard to play because you don't have enough lords to even use their abilities. Now we'll go double move that, and then we'll just go back, or we could give it a, we could give it a double move, but again, we capture and then that ends the double move. So we can't do that. We have to first move and then attack maybe as a second move. If we were going to do it, I guess that would be one way to make it fair. Keep moving this up, and then let's just try to get it to a conclusion. So, you can go here, you can go here, then we'll give this an extra move so we can go, and then it can capture. And then there's not going to be anything you can do here, so you'll just promote, and that would either be another lord, or it could just be a victory condition like that. Yeah, there are some issues with it, but mainly, let's just review the pieces. Like, there's a nice concept, at least, as trying to make them even. But where would it let me see, like, just the whole thing? Right, like, this will tell you every piece within there, too. So the pawn works like a normal pawn, but obviously it would promote to a lord. The archer is going to attack. Okay, I changed that. I said within 3 squares, so either diagonal or horizontal or vertical, maybe. I was also saying at one point it could just be horizontal or vertical, because diagonal maybe seems a little bit too strong. But whatever, within 3 squares of it can attack at a range. And so that counts not as an attack, that counts as the lord ability. They all move like either a pawn and capture like a pawn, or they move like a king. I guess I settled on the king idea though more. So like it would move like a king normally otherwise. And of course you can't move and use the ability in the same turn as the same one. The protector would either shield itself or any other lord or pawn. For the next hit it takes that lasts only 2 turns, so this turn into the next turn, or maybe not, but that seems to make it fair. Can only use 1 time on each piece the whole game. Whoops. And then the monk allow another move for another piece, which whether that be a movement or a capture, there'd have to be some rule set on it. Maybe you could just do it raw and you can only do it to something within 3 squares of it. I guess I'll include the diagonal then. So the archer can do a diagonal. The protector, again, within 3 squares, either diagonal or... But I don't know. That somehow seems like too much. Maybe it should have to be one consistent motion, though. Like, it can't do a knight move. So, like, 3 squares and 1 diagonal, or 3 squares horizontal, or 3 squares vertical, but not at some weird L shape. That you could leave that to interpretation, but the mapper is going to block off 1 square within 3 of it, which arguably that's too weak. Cannot do the same square twice in the course of a game. For 3 turns, nobody can cross or occupy. Or maybe to make it better, it should be that your opponent can't cross it or occupy it, but you can. That could be a way to make it better, because that seemed like a really bad ability. This is put a poison counter on your piece, lasts 3 turns, after which it dies. I think I maybe changed this to 2. Or maybe not. I don't know if that's necessary. If it's captured in those 3 turns, the piece that captures it dies. If not, when it dies, it destroys. If not, and this has a high consequence, because then it dies whether you use that effect or not. So it'll kill itself, destroy itself and everything within 1 square horizontal and behind, arguably in front, but that would make it too strong. The movement patterns here don't even matter. That's just like the pawn movement. The freezer seemed a little bit overpowered, so I would limit it to, it can do it within 3 squares. Again, either horizontal, vertical, maybe diagonal, but not like the way I was doing it where it's just like 3 rows. That seems like way too good then. Freeze 1 piece every turn, not even every turn, but if you use the Lord ability. So freeze a piece, cannot freeze the same piece twice in a row, as in like 2 turns in a row, though not necessarily 2 times in a row, or maybe that's debate. No, I think that's fair. So you can do the same piece 2 times in a row, just not 2 moves in a row. Can freeze a piece each, or maybe that should be just a general rule that you can't use the same Lord ability 2 moves in a row, but I don't even see the problem with that. Can freeze a piece, each piece a total of 3 times, like diminishing return. Other god, now I'm calling them gods instead of lord, can still use this ability even if frozen. I kind of took that out though. That it shouldn't be able to use this ability. Cannot move the turn it uses this ability, which of course that's true with all of them. Mind control, take over a piece instead of capturing, but that should be its lord ability, not its movement, not like something that works as an exception. So yeah, I mean, it's a little convoluted. Teleporter can move three movements in any direction at any time. First I was saying warp anywhere, so I kept trying to make them worse and worse over time because they seemed like a little too overpowered. Okay, see you later.